Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
The International Trade Secretary Liam Fox has drawn heavy criticism for saying Britain has grown too fat and lazy to fully exploit new markets abroad. Addressing a Conservative free market event, he said some business executives would rather play golf on Friday afternoons than fulfil their duty to export. The comments have been described by one boss as absolutely disgusting. Here's our political correspondent, Alex Forsyth.
2 months ago, he was given the job of promoting UK business across the globe. A Brexit backer, now in charge of negotiating trade deals. But at a Conservative drinks reception in Parliament, Liam Fox was recorded by a newspaper saying this.
This country is not the free trading nation that it once was. We have become too lazy and too fat on our successes in previous generations.
Business, he said, should consider exporting an opportunity, not duty.
Companies who could be contributing to our national prosperity but choose not to because it might be too difficult or too time-consuming or that they can't play golf on a Friday afternoon. We've got to be saying to them, if you want to share in the prosperity of our country, you have a duty to contribute to the prosperity of our country.
Himself no stranger to the golf course, Dr Fox's swing at UK business raised important points for some, but also attracted anger.
His comments about British business leaders sloping off the golf course on a Friday afternoon are unhelpful and, quite frankly, they are untrue. British business leaders work hard in developing their businesses, in innovating and indeed trying to export.
In his speech, Liam Fox did say he'd never felt more confident or optimistic about the country's future. And in a statement today, a spokesman said Mr Fox, whose new Department for International Trade is based here, was committed to supporting UK business so they could take advantage of the opportunities offered by Brexit. Nonetheless, his comments, which Downing Street said were his private views, are for some an unwelcome message to the world from a man whose job is to boost trade. Alex Forsyth, BBC News.
The International Trade Secretary Liam Fox has been attacked for accusing British bosses of being too fat and too lazy to export goods from the UK. Some other politicians have condemned his comments as crass and offensive. And as our political correspondent Libby Vina reports, his unguarded comments were recorded during a drinks reception.
Keeping away from the cameras at his West Country home today, Liam Fox's judgment is once again in the spotlight. The International Trade Secretary recorded saying that business executives didn't work hard enough and spent Friday afternoons on the golf course.
We have become too lazy and too fat on our successes in previous generations. We've got to change the culture in our country. People have got to stop thinking about exporting as an opportunity and start thinking about it as a duty.
That didn't go down well with entrepreneur David Hathiramani, who founded a bespoke online tailoring business 10 years ago.
You can knock on our door at Friday afternoon and see what we're doing, but we're trying to create something really special here. A lot of my network, a lot of my friends are trying to create other businesses that are really special as well, and we're working our socks off to do it.
Do you think he doesn't know what he's talking about?
In this case, I don't think he has a clue what we're doing, certainly on our Friday afternoons.
The former business secretary, Vince Cable, was also unimpressed.
Well, it was a sort of crass, lazy generalisation. I suspect most businesses are much less worried about their golf handicap than they are the handicap of trading under all the massive uncertainty now around Brexit.
We had David Davis having to be slapped down by number 10 at the beginning of the week, and the week has ended with the Trade Secretary launching a tirade against British business. It's chaos. It's not a plan.
You know a lot about the waistlines. Are the waistlines getting bigger, or are entrepreneurs getting fatter?
We don't necessarily keep a tally of entrepreneurs versus their waistlines, but I would say that people actually nowadays seem to be getting more fit. They seem to be going to the gym more.
So he's wrong on that
I think he's wrong on that too, yeah.
He certainly hasn't made any friends in the business world today. Libby Vina, ITV News, South London.
Now then, Liam Fox, the International Trade Secretary, has been criticised by some business leaders after he said the UK had lost its way as a trading nation and had grown too lazy and fat on its past successes. His comments come after a summer in which the government has tentatively tried to start trade discussions of some kind across the world. But it's not been the warmest of receptions from perhaps the Australians, the Japanese or the Americans. How easy then is it to strike up a free trade deal? Well, Michael Johnson is a former trade negotiator for the UK government and the European Union. And a very good morning to you, Mr. Johnson. Let's talk, because this is an argument, this is a discussion that's been had right now, and we're hearing, perhaps as Boris Johnson joins and forms this this so-called hard Brexit group, what about Britain taking down all the barriers now, becoming a symbol of free trade and saying, look what we've done, this is an example. Is that possible? What would the benefits be?
Well, some economists, of course, are already proposing to do that. And there is a valid argument in economic theory that if you remove all barriers, you can let the market function freely, and you will get the most efficient operation from that free market. In practice, of course, politically, it doesn't work like that at all, because you have interest groups, you have groups of manufacturers, employees particularly, who are concerned about their own position and their own jobs and want a modicum of protection of some sort.
Well, we think about things, I suppose, like agriculture,
yes,
the steel industry.
Yes, yes, and the motor industry, where there are significant tariffs, and what remains of our textile industry, for example. There's no such thing as free trade. I mean, I never use the term if I can avoid it, because what we're really talking about when we talk about free trade is an open and free access to a transparent and clearly understood system. I mean, the Romans didn't have free trade. They had a highly mercantilist system to supply food and other materials from across the Roman Empire into Rome. And I can't think of any time in history since when there has been untrammeled free trade. And so you're talking about a system that everybody understands and to which there's equal access, as we currently have more or less under the World Trade Organization.
But also in terms of the negotiations, as a skilled negotiator yourself, I would imagine, never having done anything like it myself, that you're effectively, if you did go for unilateral free trade, you are putting all your cards on the table.
That's
you're
right.
Turning them over face up.
You've given away all your cards, as you say, and you have nothing with which to negotiate. So there's that political aspect of it as well.
What about the scale of what's ahead, given all these trade agreements in place, and ones that the EU has negotiated while Britain's been part of it? If Britain leaves, does it still have those agreements in place?
No, it doesn't, because the 1978 protocol of the Vienna Convention on the succession of states, sorry to get technical, provides that once a territory has seceded from a state, it takes with it all the obligations which it assumed when it was a member of that state.
Oh, well, that's all right.
No, the EU is not a state.
Of course.
No, it's a contractual basis set up on a series of treaties. So it's not a state. So I think it's quite clear legally that we don't take any of those agreements with us, and those that we want to carry on with, we have to renegotiate from scratch, depending, of course, on the willingness of the other parties at the other side to renegotiate with us benefits which they will see us as already having in the terms of the EU's agreements of which we're currently members.
Give me a sense of the scale of it all, taking that on board, the scale in terms of personnel. We hear how the UK doesn't really have very many trade negotiators at the moment. Other countries offering to lend us some. I'm not sure how that would work in terms of negotiations with those countries, and the length of time.
Well, in terms of numbers of agreements, of course, the EU is commonly said to have over 50 so-called free trade area agreements in force. Many of those, of course, are preferential agreements for developing countries, but there are agreements, for example, with Korea, a very important one that was negotiated a few years ago. There's the Canadian one, which has been laboriously negotiated over the last 7 years and is not yet ratified and not yet in force. We could, of course, adopt our own policies towards the developing countries, and as the UK has a very good and honourable record in overseas aid and relations with the developing countries, we would undoubtedly do that. But coming back to the really difficult negotiations, bilateral negotiations with major economic parties, I mentioned Korea and Canada, but of course potentially you've got countries like China and Japan as well, then these are very complex operations, and they will take many years to negotiate. Because if you're talking about tariff negotiations, then there are more than 5,000 different classifications of goods in the international tariff classification, the so-called harmonized system, which is commonly used. And you would have to decide what to do about each one of those. So it's a long process.
Well, thanks for giving us some sense of the scale of the task. And discussions between us should be continued as well. Michael Johnson, for the time being, thank you very much.
And thank you very much. Thank you.
I've been